welcome to a very personal final episode of this second season of The Sound of Breaking Glass. Today, I'm joined by Uche Enemchukwu, a former corporate lawyer and now the pioneering founder of a unique employee benefits consultancy, NALU. In this episode, we explore how Uche moved from navigating the complexities of corporate law to passionately advocating for equitable employee benefits. This conversation is not just about professional transitions, though. Uche's story is a profound reminder that no obstacle is too great when we are driven by a clear vision of whom we serve and the difference we are here to make. Join us on an emotional journey through the ups and downs of entrepreneurship, the power of perseverance, and the importance of staying connected to our core mission, even when it might seem impossible.
It's such a challenge, but it's not impossible. And that's what I want to say is that hope, that perseverance has really allowed us to get to where we are. So I tell women all the time, do not be discouraged by the stats. Do not be discouraged by the data. Just keep going. Keep going.
Hi, good morning. I know it is morning where you are, and
Yes.
I'm here in London, where it's obviously we're heading just into the weekend. But I'm really excited to have you on the show today. And for our guests who would have heard the introduction to you, I obviously have shared with them that you've had an impressive career in law, in consulting, but now you're also the CEO of your own firm, which operates in the benefits space. So I've always wanted to know, how did you know that it was time to do that?
Sure. So let's see. When I was in consulting at Willis Towers Watson, I had a client who had mentioned to me that she noticed some disparities in the data in terms of how women save in the retirement plan and how men save in the retirement plan. And that really resonated with me. And I wanted to dig further into it. I'd also for a while I'd been the, personal advisor for friends and family and folks that look like me with respect to employee benefits, right? Because they felt more comfortable talking to me about it. And I think that goes to why there's a need to really reach the people who have been, historically underserved. So yeah, I came up with the idea of a benefits consultancy, targeted towards individuals who have been historically underserved in the benefits space. And by benefits, I mean all health and welfare benefits, as well as retirement benefits and other well-being benefits.
So can you tell us also a bit more about where you grew up? Because obviously we know that you went to law school and you've had a very impressive career on the corporate side before you launched into this whole new space of being business owner, entrepreneur. But how did it all start for you? And do you think part of where you grew up and the environment maybe that you had around you also impacted the way you think about your sector at the moment?
Absolutely. So I'm Nigerian by background. So I am the child of immigrants. And I grew up actually with a single mother and 5 siblings. So there's 6 of us. And we grew up in Central Florida. I'm the daughter of immigrants, Nigerian immigrants. I have 5 siblings, so there's 6 of us. And I was raised by a single mother. So that whole experience really shaped who I am today. My mother demonstrated a perseverance that really has stuck with me and has stuck with my siblings through the years. So raised in Florida, then I moved up to North Carolina for university, went to Duke University, and then I headed up to St. Louis for law school. So once I did get to law school, my heart was set on becoming a human rights lawyer. So I dug into it and I was dedicated to it. So I spent about a year in the Netherlands, actually. So at Utrecht University in The Hague, really trying, right, to establish myself in the human rights space and see what would be possible when I was in law school. And I also got a fellowship to be there. But once I learned what human rights lawyers get paid and considering the reality of the student loans I had to be realistic about what would be possible, right? So,
Yeah, that's
I-
very important because I
Go
feel like a lot of people know one very famous human rights lawyer who's built a successful career, but that's not the reality for everyone, especially if you're not married to a Hollywood star, then your lifestyle may not be quite as glamorous as much as you put your whole heart and soul into the job. I think, as you said, there are other factors to consider. And I'm really glad that you brought this up because this is very important.
Absolutely, absolutely. So with that, I started exploring, other opportunities that would allow me to be collaborative, that would allow me to help people. So um, I was really good at my tax law courses. So my advisor one day mentioned to me, have you heard of ERISA? And so that just opened up a whole new world to me. And I jumped into the space of technical employee benefits practice and was fortunate enough to be able to go to a large firm and really start my career there.
Yeah.
Um,
So maybe if we can go a step back for the ordinary
sure.
listener who, as you say, many of us are not familiar with benefits. It's a very technical, full of jargon sort of world when it comes to pensions. But maybe, and I know knowing that we have listeners from different geographies, the majority probably being in the UK, what does
Yeah,
that actually mean and how can it impact you? Because I think many people might not even realize what that space entails and why that's so relevant to them.
exactly. So it's hilarious because most folks have no idea what we do. As pensions and benefits folks, no one has any idea what we do. They probably think we're just shuffling papers in the background somewhere. But the reality is that, particularly the legal practice of employee benefits and pensions is actually very technical. It touches on every area of the law, which people get really surprised about. So it's very technical and really requires a lot of expertise to really roll out these plans and schemes. Yeah.
So I guess there's a lot of women or just listeners out there who might not be from that space, but they're thinking, well, that all sounds a little bit technical and maybe goes all over my head. What does that have to do with the show? And I know that you've spent
Yeah.
a long time explaining that connection. So I think it'll be very helpful to hear a bit more about that and how you see the world from your
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reality is because those of us who are benefits technicians, right, are in the background, kind of doing our own thing, siloed, heads down, not really thinking about how what we do comes across to other people. It's very easy for us, and it's historically and culturally how we've been in terms of benefits professionals and pensions professionals. It's very easy for us to get our own understanding of how these schemes work, but to communicate it very poorly, right? Very poorly to the extent that our participants, our members don't really understand these schemes at all, not even a little bit. But because of our own biases, we realize we tend to do a terrible job of communicating how these schemes work and why they're important and how they can help, right? So then if you layer on the reality that historically, the benefits and pensions professionals that were building these plans and schemes, designing these plans and schemes, communicating these plans and schemes have been male of a certain generation and largely white, right? And they communicate based on their own backgrounds, right? Meaning that um, not intentionally, right? But they've been speaking to members, to participants, to the public in a way that makes sense to them. And the reality of that has been that there are certain groups that they haven't been able to reach because they have really designed these schemes and they've communicated in these schemes in language and in the cultural background that they have, right? So we have to understand that the importance of these benefits, the importance of these pension plans, the importance of well-being. At the end of the day, we're getting to the core, right, of who people are, um, to the core of their existence, to the core of their ability to thrive. So that means health benefits, right? Remaining healthy and well. That means finances, right? Very sensitive, very important areas of our lives, foundational areas of our lives, right? So it is so important for us to understand people's cultures, understand their backgrounds, understand what's important to them so that we can engage with them in ways that are meaningful and that they use the pensions and they use the benefits that are available to them.
Yeah, no, I
Go
was just
ahead.
going to ask you because when you said a few important things there. One about things not necessarily being intentionally set up a certain way or being coming out of prejudice. But the reality is that the effect is just the same. And I often get people to say, "Oh, but we've given access to everyone. Everyone can join our pension plans, and everyone, and therefore it's equal, it's fair, it's open to everyone, and that's it." And you're saying it's not quite like that, is it?
Not quite like that, right? And people are using our benefit plans and programs differently based on their demographics. It means that at the end of the day, we have to take a different approach with different people. We have to take a different approach with different groups, right? So that means that we have to understand how women save. We have to understand their barriers, right, to saving. We have to understand that there are very real systemic barriers, right, to saving the same amount as men. That includes everything from pay equity, right? Not getting paid the same as men who are in substantially, similar positions as them. It means the amount of time that women take out of work to care for children and to care for other family members. Women really carry a significant, portion of caregiving responsibilities. And I should also add the knowledge, right? If you had a parent who had a pension plan, right, or scheme, you had a parent who had access to employee benefits, right? Then you have a better understanding, or you can talk to them about it, or you've seen it before. But the reality is for many historically marginalized groups, they've never seen this before. Their families never had access to it in the past. So it's more foreign, right? Um, Culturally as well, you know, people say it differently. And we've seen in the UK, for example, that you have groups who prefer to save or prefer to invest their wealth in property, right? Or something else. But if we are able to communicate with them about the benefits, right, of using a pension, right? The fact that it's protected, the fact that there's a tax advantage to it, the fact that that their employer is going to provide a significant amount of a matching contribution, right, to what they put in. If they understood that and were able to talk to them in a manner where we show we understand culturally how they save, right, then we're better able to reach them. So those are all the different considerations that we have to really take into account so that everybody has the opportunity to participate and to receive the same benefit as everyone else.
I really wanted to ask you about, I think you've made very clear what some of the challenges are around making access to benefits more equitable. But where does Nello actually come into place and how are you helping? Are you working with companies? Are you working with individuals? What is the mission of Nello?
Oh, yes. Our mission is to ensure that everybody is able to achieve health and financial well being. And that's going to mean different things for everyone, right? Based on their circumstances. But that's what's important to us, right? We want to make sure that employee benefit plans and retirement plans and pension plans are able to meet everyone's needs. And so to just give you a little bit of a background of how we are moving towards our mission, who we work with, and what that has looked like, I'll start with what we do here in the US. So we work with large employers mainly. And what we do with them is we work with them on all of their benefit plan design. So that's the technical design, right? For example, we might change something like age-based pension contributions, right? So an employer will contribute more for someone who has been there for 20 years as opposed to someone who has been there for 10 years. Because if you look at the data, you see that um, women have more career breaks than men, right? Women are the ones who make the sacrifice to take time off for caregiving. So these age-based contributions have created have created a significant savings gap. So that's just one example of technical plan design where we get to a place that is more fair, that is more equitable, right? And so we do design, then we do communications as well. So communications, how are we talking to people? How are we talking to different demographics? How do we make sure that what we're putting out there can reach everyone? And what we like to say is that if you can reach the most difficult to reach person, then you'll reach everyone for sure. So, and then finally, we do training. So we do all types of ethical and inclusive benefits trainings for benefits professionals. And then in the UK, we work primarily with pension trustees. So the reality is that if you look at the pension trustee boards, in the UK, they are very, very, very far from diverse. So
Yeah.
in the UK, we work on creating more diverse trustee boards so that we can communicate with everyone in an equitable manner and we can reach everyone and ensure that they're saving and receiving the same benefits as everyone else.
Yeah, and I'm sure when you set out to do this, you had all the right motivations, you had the experience, and you're certainly continuing to grow, which is fantastic. But I'm sure that there's have been some challenges as well, especially when it comes to owning your business. And you're laughing here because we've chatted before, and I know it's not been one or two things. Many of our listeners have this kind of corporate background, and sometimes it's quite hard to let go of the safety of that job where somebody else pays your salary. It's comfortable, isn't it?
It is very comfortable, right? It's incredibly comfortable. And I have been fortunate to have a really great career before starting Nalu. I appreciate you pointing out that we've been able to persevere, continue to exist and grow and work in different places as a company. But I will say it has been such a huge challenge, right? And the reality is we know that at the end of the day for women and minorities, we don't get much funding, right? We don't get much support generally. So we have actually started trying to raise funds. And by funds, I mean venture capital. And that is particularly for the technology that we're trying to build around what we already do, right? And raising funds for that has been incredibly difficult and has been very demoralizing because I think people often see women in business and they're like, we're so proud of you. You're doing so great and all of those things, right? But everything from being trusted by prospective clients to being able to raise funds is such a challenge. It's such a challenge, but it's not impossible. And that's what I want to say is that hope, that perseverance has really allowed us to get to where we are. So I tell women all the time, do not be discouraged by the stats. Do not be discouraged by the data. Just keep going. Keep going. So that is what we've done, and that's what we intend to do.
And that is so important. That's such a big, honestly, I think it's important to share that because, yes, we can all go around and say everything is great and you can do it. But I think it's so much more important to actually see someone who says, look, it's not all great. It's not easy. And I'm not going to pretend and sugarcoat it for you. And we've had other guests as well. We had Nikki Sebo a couple of episodes ago, who is also an entrepreneur. And she was talking a lot about how challenging it is to find women who want to back up businesses, not just to find funding, but actually to find women to be on the boards. And that's why it's important for us to hear that, look, you're still in business, you're still trying to make it work, and it's working. It's taking time, but it's gotten you somewhere. And I think that's what
Yes.
it's important to share today.
Yeah, absolutely. Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, look, I think for me, we've talked about the challenges, but I think there's also a big topic that we've sometimes touched upon in these podcasts. And you did mention that you grew up in a place where you were the only family of Nigerian background. You didn't always fit in. Then you went to law school. And I'm sure you had some similar experiences as well. So, on a more personal level, we can all see now that you're very resilient and you grew up with a very resilient parent as well, being raised by a single mom. But what has helped you along the way? Because I'm sure there were times when you just wanted to give up and go back to where what felt familiar.
Yeah. So let me say, when you say there are times when I've wanted to give up, that's probably, I have that feeling probably once a week with one challenge or another, right? But again, it's a feeling and I just have to overcome that that feeling when difficult things happen. But yeah, so here's what I would say in terms of what has kept me going and really what has allowed me to overcome a lot of those challenges. I will say honestly, other women, other women, um, other people like me that I've been able to create community with. And I'll also add allies. Allies. I've had men who are in spaces and who are in positions of authority, who are well respected, that have stuck their necks out for me, really put their necks on a chopping board. And the reality is that is the community that I've had around me is what has kept me going. And the way I've built that community is by understanding that, considering who I am, considering the real systems that create barriers for people like me, I understand that I have to be out there face to face with folks. I have to network. I have to let people understand who I am, trust me, know that I'm smart, get past their own biases. So I've spent time and I've invested energy into building relationships, into supporting other women, supporting other people of color. So I know they have my back in times when we can work together, we can build our businesses together. So really just creating community, networking, digging deep into the perseverance that my mother taught me growing up and really just continuing to move forward. If that all makes sense. I said a lot.
No, it does. It does. And I'm so glad that you did, because I think ultimately we can always talk about this and that. But unless you give some practical tools and give you examples of how you've navigated that, then it's not really of much use. And we're not here about
Yeah.
just talking about theoretical things. I think people need to hear it more and more. And I really loved your examples of how you've built that community for you. And I think that part of actually sounds to me behind you starting Nello is because you wanted to start your community as well.
Yes, absolutely. A lot of what we do is teaching. A lot of what we do is really trying to create thought leadership in this space. And I'm glad that we've been able to achieve that. So, for example, the Pensions Management Institute, we have been shortlisted for an award for impact on the profession. And that means a great deal to me, and it means a great deal to us because it says that we are getting people to think differently. It says that we are creating community around these ideas in a way that's inclusive, that's pulling people in instead of pushing them away. So I'm really proud of that.
And there's one question that I always like to ask towards the end of each interview, because I've been listening here and really enjoying hearing about your story. And I think you've shared some very important lessons about resilience, but also opening the door a little bit, especially when it comes to some very important topics in the workplace. But what can people actually take away? Where do you hope this journey will take you? Because I know that you've got big plans. I know that there's an ambition behind creating Nello. And I know that you have plans to continue to grow, but also to help more people.
Yeah. So to be honest with you, that question actually makes me a little bit emotional. And even the questions you've asked in general and being on this podcast is actually making me really emotional in the best way possible. The reason it's making me emotional is because it's forcing me to reflect on my journey and reflect on my why. And the reality is when you're in the challenge, and every day is a challenge in entrepreneurship, every day is a challenge in owning a business. And we've persevered because we've focused on our why. Our why is to really make sure that we're reaching people who have been underserved. And in reaching people who have been underserved, we know that we're making a difference in their lives. We're making a difference in their financial well-being. We're making a difference in their health and resilience. And that is our why. And that is so important. And it is easy from day to day to forget about that why because you have so many meetings and you have so much admin to take care of and you have the budget to pay attention to. And it's so important. And what I know will carry us forward is continuing to focus on our why. So where do I expect the company to be? Where do I want it to be? You know, I want us, I want us to continue continue to change the way that the benefits and pension space operates. And I want us to do that globally because at the end of the day, the pensions and benefits space is so tiny. We all know each other. I don't care if you're working in China or Australia. We are all 1 or 2 degrees apart. There's so few of us. And we have such power. These institutional investors, right, as pension plans, these institutional investors, we have so much power over so much money. We have so much power over people's well-being and their dignity in retirement. So I want us to continue to have influence over the way folks think about the design, the communications, and the investments that we make, giving everyone the opportunity to achieve financial and health well-being.
This is always the gist of what we do and why we do it. And I can see that you're getting emotional, and I am as well. And I think anyone who listens can, and hopefully we've captured that emotion because I think we all go through ups and downs. And we all at times, regardless of what we do, question why we even started. Does anyone even care? What's the point? It's not going well today. And I've had those days, including this week with this podcast. I was like, what's the point? Only 5 people have seen my post. And why am I doing it? And then I remember when I have a guest like you, this is why we do it. This is because it's giving a platform to those who need it. And if you've ever forgotten or you feel like you're not having a good day, go back to that. Is what you're saying. Go back to why you started. Remember, and then it would all fall into place and give yourself the space, I suppose, as well, because we often are our harshest critics, aren't we?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so looking forward to sharing this.
Me too. And I think this is a great place to end it, although I really enjoyed this conversation, but I wanted to record and just say that the fact that we've had so many technical challenges and issues, as it's sometimes the case with recording this interview, and I do want to share it because look, life's not great, and this is what we talk about. You sometimes don't get the ideal circumstances. You just got to carry on, and I don't mean it in the show must go on at all costs. Never do things at all costs, but at the end of the day, sometimes you just got to power through and get to that point, which was my favorite point, which is where we talk about what drives you. And that's always my favorite part about doing this podcast. So thank you so much. It's so important that we managed to get this today. Thank you, Uche.
Thank you so much for having me. Despite the technical challenges, I really enjoyed this and it was very meaningful for me. So thank you.
So this very emotional but beautiful episode with Uche marks the end of the second season of The Sound of Breaking Glass. And oh my goodness, what a powerful transition it has been for the show, for me personally. And as the show has continued to evolve, so has the theme, the topics, and my own interests. So I will be back after a well-deserved break in a couple of weeks' time And in the meantime, I've prepared some fantastic episodes with favorite guests of mine and a brand new topic, which is going to be merging the wellness sector with business and entrepreneurship. It's going to be absolutely brilliant, and I cannot wait to bring the next season to you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Sound of Breaking Glass. I truly appreciate you being here with me. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss on any new episodes. They drop every 2 weeks. I'd also love for you to join me over on Instagram or LinkedIn, where I share more behind the scenes moments, guest insights, and extra resources just for our amazing Breakers community. Let's keep the conversation going, and I can't wait to connect with you there. Until next time, take care and keep breaking through.